Hi everyone, it's Roland Kim here with your October 2025 Greater Vancouver Real Estate Update. The fall market kicked off with higher inventory, mild sales growth, and prices continuing to edge lower. After months of waiting, the Bank of Canada finally delivered a rate cut in mid-September. And now the big question is, will that be enough to reignite demand? Breaking it all down, we can see that in September, we recorded 1,875 home sales in Greater Vancouver. That's about a 1% increase from last year, but still roughly 20% below our 10-year average for this time of the year. So while activity is slightly better than last fall, it's far from booming. Buyers are back in the market, but very cautiously. When we break it down further by property type, we can see that detached homes registered 552 sales, up 7% from a year ago. Townhomes registered 356 sales, down about 6%. Condos registered 954 sales, roughly flat year over year. Detached homes are seeing a small resurgence, likely from move-up buyers who waited through the summer, but overall sales remain muted compared to historic levels. On the supply side, the story is different. Listings are pouring in. We had 6,527 new listings in September, which is 6% higher than last year and about 20% higher than the 10-year average. Sellers are stepping forward, encouraged by stabilized rates and early fall optimism. Active inventory, the total number of homes available, stood at 17,079 by month's end. That is up 14% year over year and an impressive 36% higher than the 10-year average. This is the most selection we've seen in years. Buyers finally have leverage again, and for sellers, it means your home has to stand out. Presentation, pricing, positioning have never mattered more. The sales to active listings ratio, the clearest measure of market temperature, sat at 11.3% in September. Detached homes were 8.5%, clearly in a buyer's market territory. Townhomes were 12.7%, which indicates balanced. Condos were 13.3%, balanced, leaning, cooling. Anything 12% and down, typically below 12% signals a downward pressure on prices. Between 12% and 20%, it indicates a balanced market. So right now, mathematically, Vancouver is sitting on a cooler edge of a balanced market, a calm, rational market. When we talk pricing, the benchmark composite price across all home types in Vancouver is $1,142,100. That is 3.2% down from a year ago and 7% from August. Usually, September is a steady month for pricing, often flat or slightly positive. So the small dip this year confirms that the ratios are telling us that we continue to feel mild downward pressure that seems to remain. By segment, detached houses were $1,933,000, a 4.4% decrease year over year. Townhouses were $1,069,800, a 2.7% decrease year over year. And condos were $728,800, which represents a 4.4% decrease year over year. The detached market continues to lead the decline, while townhomes and condos hold up better in the mid-range and first-time buyer segments. When we zoom out, we can see again that the Bank of Canada made headlines on September 17th, cutting its key interest rates to 2.5%. That was the first downward move in months and is already proving some improved sentiment. Mortgage rates have started to edge lower, giving some buyers the confidence they needed to re-engage this fall market. And we are expecting that at the next rate announcement, which is scheduled for October 29th, most economists right now are thinking another quarter point cut is possible. And of course that matters or depends on inflation continuing to remain cool. The job market, however, tells a different story. Canada's unemployment rate sits at 7.1% and BC at 6.2%, both higher than historic normals. Job security concerns are keeping some buyers on the sideline, especially those who might otherwise stretch to buy. And so we have a balancing act right now. Cheaper borrowing costs support demand, but economic uncertainties are holding it back. Let's line up this September against the typical September. When we do that, we see that sales, 1,875 now versus 2,348, which was the average, about a 20% decline. On listings, we see currently 6,527 versus 5,434, which was an average, which is currently a 20% increase above normal. And again, active listings are currently sitting at 17,079 versus 12,553. That's a 36% above normal. So fewer buyers, more sellers, and much higher inventory available. It's a buyer-skewed environment. something we haven't seen consistently in years, and it seems to be embedded and consistent. So if you're a buyer, what are you going to do? You can take advantage of selection with inventory at multi-year highs. You can afford to be patient and strategic. Negotiate. You can get your data, make sure that you get the right numbers, and go out there and negotiate. If you're a buyer, watch the rates. If the Bank of Canada continues to cut again in October, likely we'll see another rate decrease in early 2026. If you're a seller, the hope is not lost. Price with precision. Buyers are data-driven and inventory is high. Overpricing leads to stale listings. Making sure that your presentation wins through staging, photography, and marketing your home like it's a competition, which it always has been, is how you're going to separate yourself and get sold. And stay flexible on terms and timing and different conditions that in the past were not part of the deal if you were a seller in the Greater Vancouver market. So here's what I expect over the next 3 to 6 months. In the short term, prices will likely drift sideways and lower throughout the rest of 2025. In the medium term, if rate cut cycle continues and the economy steadies, we could see a renewed uptick in early 2026, starting in condos and townhouses. The risk is, in all of this, if job losses accelerate, that recovery may take a lot longer to materialize, likely at 2027 or later. So it's really dependent on the job loss going forward and the rate cuts. So this fall isn't about chasing a rising market. It's about strategic positioning. Buyers can finally shop thoughtfully, and sellers who adapt early will stand out. In wrapping it all up, September 2025 favors buyers. We're seeing more listings, calmer competition, and an early tailwind from rate relief. But for anyone waiting for the perfect signal, real estate rarely turns all at once. Conditions shift quietly before they show up in the headlines. If you'd like a breakdown of how these numbers affect you personally in your specific neighborhood or your property type and your conditions and specifics, please reach out to me. I'd love to sit down and talk to you and talk you through it. I'm Roland Kim, Vancouver Realtor, here to help.